Stepping Stones, A Refugee's Family's Journey by Marguerite Roers, artwork by Nizar Ali Badr. Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Albert Einstein. So forward. Rama, wake up, the rooster crowed every morning when we still lived at home. From my warm bed, I listened as Mama prepared breakfast, bread, yogurt, juicy red tomatoes from our garden. When I was little, not so long ago, my brother Sammy, our friends and I played on sun-baked soil. We laughed, ran across rocks and sand, free as birds. When Papa came in from the fields, he would sit for a time under the orange tree and tell stories of our ancestors. In that not-so-distant memory, we were free to play, free to go to school, free to buy fruit and vegetables at the market, free to laugh and chat, drink tea with neighbors, always 3 cups. But that was then, and this is now. Back then, Jeddo, my grandfather, fished. Papa worked in the fields. Mama sewed silk scarves for me and my dolls. Wrapped in silk and hugs, I didn't know our lives would soon change forever. But Jeddo said we weren't really free. If we're not allowed to sing our songs, to dance our dances, to pray the prayers of our choice, are we truly free? Then war came to our country. Life in our village changed. Nothing was as it had been. Soon there was not enough food. Rama, share this bowl of soup with Sami. I didn't know then that Mama would go hungry, but we still had Mama's hugs and Jeddo's arms to hold us. Then the birds stopped singing. People began to leave our village, first a trickle, then a stream, across dusty fields under a burning sun, a stream driven by hope. Mothers, fathers, children seeking a better place, a better life. A river of strangers in search of a place to be free, to live and laugh, to love again. In search of a place where bombs did not fall, where people did not die on their way to market. A river of people in search of peace. At first, when our neighbors left, I didn't mind. I had Papa and Mama and Jeddo and Sammy. I still had friends. We waved goodbye, not knowing they would not come back. But when bombs fell too close to our home, Mama and Papa became frightened for us all. I hid my face in Mama's lap and cried, even though I am a big girl. One day Jeddo told Sammy and me that it was time to join the river of people, time to leave all we knew. That night I lay in bed and cried because I knew I would never again hear the crow of the rooster, the creak of the gate, the bleat of our goat. I lay awake and listened to the wind, wondering if the moon rises the same way in other places. Sammy and I said goodbye to the flowers in our yard, to our goat, to the soil we called home, and then we walked. We walked and walked and walked. I tried to match my steps to Jeddo's long strides. I tried to hold Mama's hand, but she carried blankets, a bundle of clothes. I carried only memories in my heart. We walked, sometimes alone, but mostly with many others. Everyone fleeing the war, running away from the bombs. Papa carried little Sammy and more on his back. When I grew so tired and cried, Papa told me we were walking toward a bright, new future. We walked to the end of the earth, and when we reached it, there was the sea. We set sail on waves of hope and prayer. I was frightened as the waves battered our little boat, and not everyone made it safely across. We said prayers for those whose journey ended at sea. When we arrived on land once again, Mama and Papa planted seeds to grow flowers, to remember those who did not reach freedom. And on we walked. Tired. I was so tired. My feet felt like the rocks on which we walked. My legs were trees rooted to the soil. On we walked. But now we walked across lands free from war, free from guns and bombs, free from fear. Now we walked in hope. At last we came to our future. New neighbors welcomed us with open arms. I heard their voices but didn't understand their words. But when I saw their smiles, I knew what the words meant. Stay, they said. Stay here with us. You will be safe now. No more war. They shared what they had, clothes, food, even a new doll. We have a new home now, a home with new sounds and smells, with smiles and people who help. Will this always be home? Will we go back one day? The lucky ones, they call us. New memories, new hopes, new dreams. Not of war, but of peace.
It's the biggest crisis of its kind in Europe since the aftermath of World War II. Europe is struggling with a migrant crisis that has resulted in more than 3,000 deaths since the beginning of this year. So why is it happening now? Primarily because of growing conflict and instability in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Many of the refugees come from Syria, where a civil war has been raging for more than 4 years. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government has been accused of using barrel bombs and chemical weapons against its own people, and the extremist group Islamic State has taken over large parts of the country, putting civilians under brutal and violent rule. 4 million people have fled the country, with around 2 million Syrians in Turkey, more than 1 million in Lebanon, and more than 600,000 in Jordan. More Syrians are heading to Europe as refugee camps in these neighboring countries are overcrowded and underfunded. War-torn Afghanistan and Iraq are also major sources of refugees, and large numbers of people are fleeing civil war in Libya, while others are fleeing poverty and conflict in Eritrea and Nigeria. Plus, there are European migrants. Thousands of people are leaving Kosovo and Serbia trying to escape poor economic conditions back home. According to the EU's border agency, there has been almost 3 times the number of migrants illegally crossing into Europe between January and July this year. So what is their end goal? Many want to get to Germany, Sweden, and the UK where there are better economic conditions and growth, so jobs will be easier to find. Plus, many of those seeking to get to the UK speak at least some English. How are they trying to get there? There are established routes that lead to Greece, Hungary, or Italy. Nearly 200,000 people have arrived in Greece alone so far this year. Many migrants from Syria and Iraq travel through bordering Turkey. From there, they head to Greece on boats across the Aegean Sea. From Greece, many head to the Western Balkans to continue their journey. Macedonia, Serbia, and Hungary all see an estimated 2,000 migrants arriving each day. In Italy, more than 100,000 people have landed so far this year, with people taking the dangerous Mediterranean route from Libya. Do the migrants get to Northern Europe? Many do. Germany expects to process 800,000 asylum applications this year. But many also get stuck in Hungary and Greece, waiting for the documents they need to travel to other European countries. And in a controversial move, Hungary has built a fence along its border with Serbia in an effort to stop the flow of people coming in. How is the EU dealing with this? So far, there's not much of a common strategy. The EU has boosted maritime search and rescue efforts, and a number of countries have agreed to resettle qualifying migrants. Germany, France, and Italy say asylum seekers should be distributed fairly across the European Union. But there's tension in the bloc. Countries are at odds about instituting a quota system, with poorer members resistant to taking a broader share. Germany, France, and the UK have agreed to resettle tens of thousands of migrants, but a Europe-wide plan is still lacking.
I want you to listen to a recording of some diplomats who want to share their experience and their expertise with you about the Syrian refugee crisis.
My name is Andrej Mahicic. I'm UNHCR spokesperson working in London. We have appealed over the past year, and we continue to appeal to the countries in the world, which includes Europe as well, and also extended Middle East, to consider programs that would allow Syrians to find safety outside the region as well, whether through resettlement, whether through humanitarian admission programs, whether through easing visa regime, whether giving work permits or student visas, whether through family reunification, but to look for ways to allow people to come and seek safety in Europe. There is something profoundly wrong when people who are fleeing one of the worst conflicts in recent decades are forced to take rickety boats from Northern Africa as the only way for them to reach safety in Europe.
So what we're seeing is that Syrian refugees are in danger of crossing. And many people in Europe don't want them. Let's listen to this expert.
My name is Ilyana Savova, and I'm director of the refugee program of the Bulgarian Helsinki Committee. Greater solidarity is what Europe needs. If we are genuine in our statements about protecting Syrian refugees and other refugee populations coming to Europe from places like Afghanistan or Kurdistan. What seems to be happening instead? An ever-growing divide between two halves of Europe. The rich north is merely paying out the poorer south to keep the refugees in Europe's periphery, or in Bulgaria's case, outside at any cost. External border countries cannot cope alone, neither with refugees' reception, but even less with their integration. Freedom of movement within Europe should be extended to refugees so they can indeed find a safe haven and start rebuilding their lives. Anything else would be hypocritical and would result in nothing less than closed borders, barbed wires, and new Berlin walls.
All right, so part of the problem is that while people in Europe are calling to help these refugees, they don't actually want them in their country. And that's what we need to look at. Why doesn't Europe want these refugees? What are they afraid of? What are the experiences of these refugees?